We're going to get your reaction on what you've heard both our guests say in the programme so far tonight. Paul Robinson, who's a media mogul, Jonathan Davis, who's a wealth manager. Paul, just before we get to the headlines, we mentioned your role as chief executive of the Radio Academy, and also I must mention you were defending Radio 1. You used to be relatively high up. You were Radio 1's top man, number 2 top man.
Yeah, I was the managing editor. I was head of programmes. I generally think Radio 1's a very good station. I do believe it actually does things that other stations don't do. I mean, I went to this really interesting event this week, the Student Radio Awards, held at the Indigo. I hadn't been to that venue before. What a great venue! But there were 2 presenters, one from Radio 1, one from Capital, if I may mention a commercial station.
Yes.
And the guy from Radio 1 said,
any stations that's not broadcasting anymore, you can mention as much as you like.
The guy from Radio 1, they were having a bit of a dig at each other, and they were talking about audience figures, and the guy from Radio 1 said, Radio 1 Newsbeat gets more listeners than your breakfast show. But I make the point because what Radio 1 does is it brings news to young people and they wouldn't otherwise consume it, and that's a public service. All right.
If we want to find out more about what you do, because I know that there's other things you do too, Paul, you're involved with television and as well as the Radio Academy now. How can people find out?
Yeah, probably best is Twitter. I'm a reasonably diligent user of Twitter, so at Paul Robinson PR.
Wonderful. And Jonathan?
I'm on Twitter as well. I love Twitter. Someone asked me recently, what do you do it for? And I thought about it for a second. I said, do you know what? It's a great learning tool and it's also a great teaching tool. I just love Twitter. JD Wealth Manager. All right. We'll come back and find out more about what you brought to the table to review the day. And we'll take your calls, emails and texts during the hour as well. 0207 224 2000 is our number. You can email simon@bbc.co.uk and you can text 81333. Start your message with the word London. Simon Lederman Show, BBC London 94.9. 11:30 is the time. And Valley Fontaine has the headlines.
Thanks, Simon. A man who was on the run from the police has been hit by a train in Willesden. Officers saw the man in his 20s run into a garden, climb over a fence and onto the railway lines. London Ambulance Service say the man died at the scene at 5:15 this afternoon. Enfield Council has failed to get a judicial review of the decision to close Chase Farm's accident and emergency unit. The authority had argued the closure at the hospital was unlawful, but a judge at the High Court ruled the council had no arguable case for a judicial review. The hospital said the A&E unit would close on the 9th of December while the maternity unit would close this month. A cyclist has died after a collision with a bus outside East Croydon Station. It happened on Addiscombe Road at around 11 a.m. The man in his 40s was taken to hospital but couldn't be saved. The Philippines president said he believes fewer people died during Typhoon Haiyan than first thought, and that the figure was likely to be revised down to about 2,500. And the Christmas lights on Oxford Street have been turned on tonight. The crowds were also treated to performances by Jessie J, James Arthur and Conor Maynard. And London's weather, it will be a dry and cold night with a low of -1 degrees Celsius, that's 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow will be dry with plenty of sunshine with a high of 10 degrees Celsius, that's 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's headlines. There'll be a full update at midnight.
This is BBC London 94.9.
And I understand you've got a mental health issue, yes?
Yes, I suffer from this bipolar thing.
BBC London 94.9 Breakfast.
And what about your colleagues? Did you share it with them or was this just between you and your boss?
Ultimately, I did share it with my colleagues.
Weekdays from 6.
If you have schizophrenia, you are very likely to want to hide it from somebody.
Would you say, yeah, I have to declare this, or would you keep it to yourself?
BBC London 94.9 Breakfast.
I think declaring is the best thing.
I'm just saying, look, I'm actually not very well at the moment. Like it or lump it.
Is that the message you're trying to get across?
It's good to talk, and I found that when I was recovering.
Thank you for broaching the subject, actually. I think it's very, very topical.
Weekdays from 6. Call 020 722 42000.
Text 81333. Start your message with the word London.
BBC London 94.9.
Simon Lederman Show, BBC London 94.9, 0207 224 2000. In a few moments' time, back with Paul Robinson and Jonathan Davis to review the day. Earlier, we were talking about this story of the widower who was nursing his dying wife from lung cancer. A GP was also helping, and not very long after the wife died, 17 days indeed after the wife died, he got married, got engaged to the GP. We were asking on the programme tonight whether any of them have done anything wrong and whether you are judging them in the same way that some others are. Jennifer's in Clapham. Evening to you, Jennifer.
Oh, hello.
Welcome to the show.
Right.
What do you make of this story?
Well, I think nobody knows the circumstances and they should mind their own business.
Yes.
For instance, something similar happened, not in our family, but very close. And they were all running the guy down. He should have waited 2 years, And I said to my husband, well, if anything happens to me, you get married again as soon as possible.
And did you mean that?
I did. I really did, because I wanted him looked after. And then I thought, well, his sister idolised him. She would have looked after him. And
was that a difficult thing to say, even though you say you meant it? Because it's dealing with two very difficult things. One, facing your own death, and secondly, facing that he would move on. That's very difficult.
I know, but I just wanted him to be happy and be looked after, because he was such a good guy. And whoever I met never came up to his standards as far as I was concerned. I would compare everybody to him.
Right.
And that was that.
And your husband is now no longer with us, is he?
No, he died at 49.
Right, gosh, so that's at a young age.
And I was absolutely devastated. And then I didn't realise what I was saying to him. When I said what I said, you get married again as soon as possible, I couldn't have done it. I was in such a state.
And had he given you that suggestion too, that you should move on if anything happened to him?
No.
He didn't agree?
Well, he didn't say anything about that. He just said if anything happened to me, he'd commit suicide.
Oh, gosh.
So whether he meant it or not, I don't know.
And what has stopped you? What stopped you moving on? Was it just simply the shock and the sadness and love that you still had for your husband, or was there more to it than that?
Well, I just compared everybody to him, He wouldn't have done this and he wouldn't have said that. And I don't think I would have trusted anyone like him. He was a hero in the war as well, gallantry of the highest order, his medal said. So I was
How long was your marriage, Jennifer?
19 years.
And you have, I imagine, you must have very happy memories of that time.
Oh, definitely. And now I can laugh about the things he said to me. I think about him and I have a little laugh to myself. Funny things he used to say. What was
his favourite story that he told you forever and ever? Always repeated it every time. Same story.
Well, no, it wasn't a story. It was just that I used to buy lemon cakes. He told me he liked them, and every Saturday I would buy this lemon cake. Then he said to me, "Why do you keep buying these things?" I said, "You said you like them." He said, "I hate the sight of them now."
Jennifer, thank you so much for the story.
Laugh.
Thank you for the story. Will you please call us again?
And can I just say something to you? Where do you keep disappearing to? I put the radio on at 10 and you're not on, somebody else's.
When?
Well,
I've not been. I'm probably taken the least amount of. Gosh, this is like a meeting with my manager. I have taken the least amount of holiday, I think, of anybody on this. When was I not here? When was I? Oh, unless you mean Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Oh, maybe it is.
I'm here Monday to Thursday nights, 10 till 1.
Oh, you're not here Friday?
No, I don't work Friday. Because I work Saturday morning. Saturday morning I work.
That's why then.
6 till 9. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I apologise, Jennifer. I should be here every night of the week. But
I like your voice, you see.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, I say Monday to Thursday and Saturday morning 6 till 9.
Right. Okay, then.
But the deal is that you must call me again.
I will.
Right. Thank you for the call. 0207 224 2000. Paul Robinson and Jonathan Davis are here to review the day, and we'll get your calls through it as well. So far, we've spoken about energy customers. We've also talked about the BBC that is going to ask its audiences to have the say on what TV channels should be doing. Jonathan, can we go back to you? This is a text we had in. I mentioned we'd had some text about financial matters. Daryl said, on the news for the last 2 weeks, how good the economy is. Talking it up is an understatement. Can we please have a reality check? Houston, can you hear me, says Daryl. This is on the text. And we have learnt today that UK inflation is down to 2.2%. We can't keep the good news coming fast enough. House prices up, unemployment down, inflation down, and now EDF only charging us 3.9% more. This is nothing but good news. Even your doom-laden shtick can't knock the good news out of this, surely.
I'll make a stab at it.
I thought you might. Go on.
Yeah.
Why should we be worried about the economy?
Oh, we should be terrified. Not in the short term. No, in the short term, when you've got a central bank, the Bank of England, which is having its tummy tickled by the government of the day, independent, don't make me laugh, and doing whatever it can to keep interest rates low so that the government borrows relatively cheaply. In other words, when it borrows, it doesn't pay a lot of interest. So the government's borrowing £120 billion a year, as I said earlier, which, just to remind people, is the equivalent of a normal household borrowing £1,000 a month, more or less, to break even. We've got millions more who are, in the last few years, underemployed, which means that they've gone part-time, or they've gone on to low pay from high pay, or they've gone to self-employment, working from their bedroom, earning £1,000 a month. Millions more, which means in aggregate, incomes as a whole are not rising, they're falling. Of course, public sector pay is not rising at the rapid rate that it was in the decade up till a few years ago. All we're seeing is 1.5% growth with all this phenomenal stimulus, more stimulus than literally in human history. And all they can get is 1.5% growth. And on top of that, this help to buy nonsense, or as I call it, help to sell. Because 2 days after the budget in March this year, after 3 years of house prices stagnating, apart from, of course, in the likes of Kensington, I wrote a piece and I said, right, house prices are now going to rise for at least the next couple of years until the election, because, of course, it was all about buying votes. And what it means
but
is...
the Help to Buy numbers are very small. The numbers of people that have been helped by Help to Buy are minuscule compared to the numbers of people who are buying property with cash and the numbers of people who are being turned down by banks for loans.
It's a domino effect, though. Even that small number is more than there were. Therefore, we create a domino effect of more chains being able to complete and house purchases and house sales able to happen. The thing is, though, it's all about easy lending again, which is, of course, the problem that we had, which got us into the mess in the first place. And, you know, you're talking about deficit and debt. Deficit is how much you're borrowing over how much you're borrowing every year. The debt is £1,100 billion, and that's the amount they admit to. On top of that, you've got state pensions, civil service pensions, private finance initiative. They don't even admit to it. It's not on the balance sheet of the government. £4,000 billion. And who's going to pay that? My children. Your children are going to pay that. So we've gone way beyond borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. We're now borrowing from Peter's son to pay Peter. That's how disgusting the position is. And yet, as you say, the media is telling us everything is brilliant. Well, it might be for 5 minutes, but I'm telling you, we're going to pay the piper in a few years' time.
Paul, you're working in the commercial sector. Do you sense that is the way that you feel?
Well, I have to say the first thing, I quite like the paying Paul bit, actually, but, you know, seriously, I think you've got to be careful.
Only because you're Paul, I get it, got it.
A bit slow there, sorry. Yeah. People say it all the time, and I go, yes, please, thank you very much. I'm very happy with that. I think you'll be careful to not get too fooled by individual numbers. And what I'd say is look at what's changing. If you're looking at house prices going up, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, for people who want to get into the housing market, that makes it harder for them. So it's very difficult for first-time buyers. For those who've got a house, they will feel better. They'll feel better because the chance of falling into negative equity reduces, and people generally feel more comfortable when their house is going up in value, and that creates a sort of feel-good effect. I'm a bit of a believer in thinking positively, and positive thinking produces positive results. If you talk it down, it will go down. So if you talk it up, it will probably go the other way. The reality is that inflation going down, unemployment going down has to be better than it was a year or 2 years ago. Whatever the absolute numbers are, those are positive signs. So
at what cost, Paul?
Let me finish the point.
We're borrowing £120 billion a year.
You mention a number, but that number's got to be in the context of what other countries are doing, the size of the economy. I think it's slightly sensational what you're saying. The point is that
it's mathematics, actually.
Okay, well, the point is it doesn't mean anything. It's just a big number that sounds sensational. What matters is, are people improving their standards of living? Have more people got a chance to work?
No, they're not.
Have more people got a chance to buy a home? If the answer to that question is yes, things are improving.
Do you believe the answer is yes?
I think the answer is it's very hard to get a ball rolling. We've been in a situation where there's clearly been contraction. I think it's going to take a while. I think there are green shoots. We haven't yet got the tree.
Why haven't you left the country? Because there are people who want to think, actually, get the money I've got. If you're saying in 2 years it's all going to be, or after the election, whenever that is, it's 2 years, isn't it? 2015.
25 seats, yeah. Where would I go?
I don't know. Where
America's in the same position. The rest of Europe's the same position. Japan is in a terrible situation.
Well, can't we just all reset and just say, right, we invented money. We've still got the air we breathe. We've still got the food we grow. We've still got the houses that exist. We invented the money. Can't we just reset?
Well, in a sense, actually, Simon, that's what I, as a capitalist, would love to see happen. We've got these ivory tower merchants in old Threadneedle Street, the old lady of Threadneedle Street in the Bank of England, setting interest rates. For 319 years, we've had a group of men, largely men, a few women these days, setting something which is so vital to our economy. What makes them so smart? The fact is they've got it wrong for decades. Why not instead let the market decide interest rates? That will bring the reset. That will bring us a generation of growth, as opposed to a generation of, at best, 1 or 2% growth, while increasing the debts of our children and probably grandchildren.
And literally in 5 seconds, and I'm going to get people with houses and mortgages to sit down. If the market were to set interest rates, what would they be right now?
If the market set interest rates, if you want to focus on that, they'd be down. They'd be down 50%.
Down?
Well, of course, the interest rates would probably be more like 5%, and house prices would fall. Why is the media...
That's what I mean. So I meant, what would interest rates be? They'd be 5%.
Yes.
Yeah, if the market was setting it.
Yeah, but again, why are you guys always focusing on that quarter of the population which has got big debts? 3/4 of the population has got either no debt or small
savings,
debt.
And they'll be
exactly,
and also they'd be celebrating that.
Exactly.
Your headphones are on. Nora's in Upper Holloway. Evening to you, Nora.
Hello. Good evening.
Welcome to the show,
Jonathan and Paul. Good evening.
Hello.
And good
evening
to you, Simon. The wealth manager is talking a great deal of sense. Actually, I was talking to my brother on the phone tonight, and he asked me if I saw the panorama recently about
this is last
the rise
night, I think, on house prices.
And I said more or less what Jonathan has said. I said, to me, now I'm not an economist, nowhere near it, but I think I've got a bit of common sense. I said, to me, my opinion, this is an election ploy by the Tory government, and it's pushing this right to buy and right to buy and right to buy, and people are going to buy the houses. And they gave all the examples in the Panorama programme. There was one young lady that bought a house under this. She was a school teacher, which I expected her to be reasonably intelligent. And the questioner, the gentleman that ran the programme, said to them, do you realise, that the Bank of England rate is 0.5%? And did she realise that when the interest rate rises, which it will do, up to 4.5%, that her payments would increase? She said, no, she didn't.
Jonathan?